Hello everybody, Flik here and welcome to Let's Chat, my weekly vlog series posted every Monday at lunchtime if you're in the UK. If you're not, then it's whenever the hell you're listening to this, basically. And this is going to be an E3 focused vlog because, well, E3 is the biggest gaming event of the year, or at least it's supposed to be. But rather than talk at length, like when E3 came around when I was doing a podcast, we'd usually end up talking about it for 2 hours straight. So in order to avoid that, we're going to get the Q&A section out of the way from questions on Twitter, if there has been any, and the comment section of last week's. And then I'm going to get into the E3 stuff, and rather than go through each of the main events, you know, Microsoft, EA, Ubisoft, and Sony, I'm just going to talk about a few of the games that, for one reason or another, stuck out. So, without further ado, I don't want to get too bogged down in explaining things, let's just get on with it. Starting with Twitter, because I have TweetDeck open, which actually had an exploit the other day that people were exploiting to do weird code-related retweets. I think it's fixed now anyway, we got the all clear, so Twitter's reactivated TweetDeck. TweetDeck as a program is amazing if you've never used it. So anyway, let me scroll back here and see if anyone has been talking to me. Yes, Kursai55, otherwise known as David with no surname. What is your favourite anime series? Have you heard of Hellsing? I've heard of Hellsing, but I've never watched it. My favourite anime, so we're talking about just anime here, we're not talking about mangas, we're talking about just an anime I really like, or like the most. I'm turning my head to look at some of the animes I've got the full box sets of. Death Note is probably my favourite anime. I think it stays true enough to the original source material while also just being really good on its own. I can't really fault it as an anime. And I also highly recommend it. But if you want some like backup answers, I've got Martian Successor Nadisco on DVD box set. It's a take piss anime. It makes fun of all manga and anime tropes while also still having a story of its own that I quite liked. What else? Neon Genesis Evangelion. I liked that much more when I was a kid because I was more impressionable. It's very depressing, but it's also pretty fun. The story of like its creation is just as interesting and bizarre as the series itself, because the creator had a nervous breakdown partway through production. They ran out of money at the end of the original series, so the last 3 episodes are basically just stills and reused footage, and then they made a movie to kind of make up for it after it got cult status and became super popular, and then they bollocksed up the movie by making it just gross and bizarre. And the end of Evangelion, the original, not like the most recent remakes, was remains to this day one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen for a variety of reasons. Other than that, turning my head again, you know, the Disgaea anime was actually okay. It kind of followed the storyline of the very first game. I wouldn't say it's amazing though, you'd have to be into the humour of the Disgaea games to really appreciate it. Finally, I've got Scryed, or Scryed I believe it's actually called. That's another good anime. It's a short running one, like, I don't think it was 26 episodes, maybe it was something like 35, but either way it's quite good as well. But yeah, Death Note is by far my favourite anime. And that seems to be it as far as questions on Twitter, so for once I'm kind of glad that there's not too much to get bogged down by. So in another window here, I've got the comments from last week's video, so we'll start at the bottom, work our way up. Let's see here. Dragonakis was asking what music I use in the background of the Let's Chats, but I answered him on there. It's from YouTube's vast library of copyright free to use was the end of the original sentence there, and then it changed to copyright free music available that you can actually replace video music with if you ever get a claim on just the audio part of any video you upload. So I already answered that, but there you go, I answered it again. Let's see what else we have here. Someone tell me about, oh yes, I remember talking about this last time, the code that comes in Mario Kart 8. I wasn't sure if it was the Club Nintendo VIP Pass thing or whatever. Turns out it was, so it's tied to my account, so I can't give it away after I registered the game. So I used it to get Wind Waker HD. Guild Force Gaming, 5 words, 1 game. That was something we used to do from the podcast. Oh, he says that. Yeah, so he says 5 words, 1 game. Another thing from the podcast, Japanese Demons Purify Capcom Oni. And also happy birthday, thank you very much. That would be Onimusha, one of them, or all of them, or none of them. What other games had demons and samurai and whatnot? Also, Oni is demons, so you didn't need to put both. Yeah, I'm going to go for Onimusha on that, so you can let me know next time if I'm right. And there was another few people just wishing happy birthday. Thank you very much. And also thank you very, very much to Dragonakis for buying me the Dark Souls 2 Season Pass, which has secured a playthrough of it happening for sure. Let's see here. Lachi Schofield saying, I got my question answered. I don't blame you for mispronouncing my name. You got my surname right, though. Okay. Don't worry about that. I'm used to it. It's pronounced as if the H wasn't there. So, Lachi, I guess. I think. Moving on. Just get past all these people just wishing me happy birthday. Thank you. Oh, there's a question. From Daniel Nat. Oh yeah, I came up with a question. It's about your profile pic. So, did you draw it yourself? No, it was a fan. Is the mic supposed to look like a horse at first glance? Wait a minute. I'm going to have to load up the original JPEG I got sent now. Does that look like a horse? Let me just... Hang on. Where's my folder? There's my folder. Does that microphone look like a horse? Oh, are you meaning the pattern on the Scottish flag? I guess I'm kind of pulling back just to look at it from a distance. I kind of see what you mean. Kind of. But no, that's the Scottish flag. So what else did you say? So sorry, I had to point that out. That's fine, we have a thing about horses here apparently. Is your avatar supposed to look like a gender-bent version of Raven from Teen Titans? Please don't hit me. No, it is not. Originally I was using a picture of Nega Scott from Scott Pilgrim, which is a series of books I highly recommend. Definitely not the movie though. So someone drew me an original Flik character, but done in the same style as the original picture of Nega Scott I had. So I guess that's why the colour schemes are the same. But I'm going to have to look up this. It is not meant to be some female character or some male version of a female character, but I want to know what Raven Teen Titans images. Please don't be porn. Yeah, I can see the colour scheme is kind of the same, kind of. But no, they're not meant to be related at all. There's a lot of different styles for her, I see. I guess it must be like different series or something. But no, it's not meant to be that, so any similarities to this lady or to Nega Scott are purely coincidental. This is an original Flik character who's got his own adventures and I don't know. So what else have we got? Magic Mumbo, I'm hoping to have everything done. Oh, you were doing DIY, yes, that's right. And he mentions the Steam Summer Sale. Apparently, news on the grapevine, in fact you might already know this by the time this is out. This is released on the 16th. Apparently the Steam Summer Sale starts on the 19th. And runs for just under 2 weeks. So if you're planning on buying anything that's been on Steam for a little while, wait. Definitely wait. And with that, I think that's all my questions done. If you want to have a question or something you want discussed, put forward, do it in the comments of this, or ask me on Twitter when you see me kind of saying, hey, I'm recording a chat video soon, please let me know some things you want me to talk about. Anyway, E3. So the way by which I'm kind of doing this is I didn't write down any notes, and so that means if a game didn't stick in my head for either really bad reasons or really good reasons, it fell flat. And E3 in general this year was very safe. Very safe, that's the polite way to put it. Everybody played it safe. Microsoft, I actually missed the first 10-15 minutes of the Microsoft conference and haven't bothered to go looking. I think it was just a Call of Duty game showing off, that's why. But if they mentioned the Kinect there, then fair enough, but from the conference I saw, I don't think they mentioned the Kinect once. So that was very smart of them, because they realised people think peripherals like that are BS. Same with Sony really, they mentioned their camera once, and it was for a game that exclusively needed it, so I suppose that makes sense. But yeah, they twigged that people don't give a shit about crappy peripherals that make them need to do stuff that doesn't function properly. Like anytime I see someone trying to make a Kinect work, it's hilariously flawed. See, I don't know about the PlayStation Eye, but I assume it's the same. So I'm glad that they caught on and they made it all about the games. I didn't hear TV being mentioned once by Microsoft. Sony did. Sony actually mentioned it. But that's because they were building on their, I don't know what service they called it, that they announced last year. And now they're getting an exclusive series on some graphic novel set that I've never heard about. So they wasted a bit of their time with the non-game stuff. But, oh, what was that? That was my Skype failing to make a phone call? I wasn't calling anybody. That was very strange. Let's ignore that, if you did indeed hear it. So what games stood out for me? Well, obviously, given what I'm covering for my channel, I was exceptionally interested in what the so-called Project Beast was that From Software and, what's the gent's name who did the original Demon's Souls? Is it Mizeki, or it's no, I can't remember. I'm not going to try and pronounce a few Japanese names. But either way, his project turned out to be Bloodborne, I think is what it's called. It's basically Demon's Souls and Dark Souls, but apparently he's not into doing direct sequels, which is also probably why he didn't work on Dark Souls 2. So it's not even like a distant cousin. It's the similar playstyle, but they're not connected at all. And apparently the focus is going to be on offensive combat from the role of the player rather than defensive, which is the method of play in Demon's Souls games and Dark Souls games, because you have to avoid attacks, or you have to defend, but you can't just... Also, if you hear my mouse clicking, it's because I'm going to put Skype on busy to try and stop those sound effects. There we go. So I wasn't interested in what they showed during the conference because it was CG, and that's going to be a running theme. I don't give a crap about CG cutscenes. Sometimes they can be amazing, but they tell me absolutely nothing about the game, so from a learning point of view, I'm not interested in a CG cutscene. But if you want an example of one done really great to the point where I consider it art, the original trailer for Dead Island 1, I think is an amazing bit of cinema. I don't care if it tells me absolutely nothing about the game. It certainly fails from that perspective, but from every other perspective, I really love that trailer. This year, yeah, CG trailers were all over the place. I liked the one for the new Assassin's Creed game that I'll talk about more in a second, but yes, so Project Beast, otherwise known as Bloodborne, whatever. It looks good. I did actually see some in-game footage. People kind of stole some footage of people playing it behind the scenes. So yeah, it looks interesting. You're playing a Van Helsing type character, and you're searching for a cure, and there seems to be some kind of zombie disease. People were moaning that it's essentially the same trope over again. I mean, in Dark Souls there's the curse. In Dark Souls 1 there was basically a curse as well. In Demon's Souls there wasn't per se, but people were turning hollow. So yeah, I can see why people might get annoyed that it's the same crap again. Although he wasn't part of Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 1, I don't think. So he's entitled to do things his way. I'm still interested in it. And you get a shotgun, which really does appeal to me. So yeah, the thing from the Microsoft conference that got my attention was the new Assassin's Creed Unity. And I really didn't want it to, because I kind of gave up on the Assassin's Creed series at 3 because 3 was awful. Although saying that, for lack of anything better to play on my Vita, I did play through Assassin's Creed Liberation, which was okay. It was okay for a handheld game. So the thing that got me interested in Unity, well actually the setting for one, the French Revolution is actually a very interesting time period. It's also fairly modern compared to where some of the other ones have been set. It's a very interesting turmoil, no, what's the word? Chaotic, I guess I'll just say as an alternative to the word I was trying to think of. Chaotic time period where there's a lot of crap happening. I guess you're basically playing as the Scarlet Pimpernel. But what was most interesting was, of course, that it is 4-player co-op. You have your main protagonist, but then missions can have up to 3 other people helping you, thus changing the way you play. And obviously being co-op, that's one of my kind of buttons. That's just one of my good, not the bad buttons that annoy you, the good buttons that please you. So unfortunately I have been drawn back into the world of Assassin's Creed because I want co-op Assassin's Creed. I really, really want that. So Unity has my interest, and the in-game demos they showed were okay. They were good. I don't really have anything to complain about. I don't have anything to complain about, but lots of other people do, because how dare none of the 4 playable characters be women? And really, people are just nitpicking really irritating things at present. Especially one bad, well, they're all bad over at Kotaku, but the worst of their authors just picks any little bollocksy tiny thing to whinge because there's no women. Assassin's Creed Liberation had a woman. If Ubisoft don't want to put any playable, because I will assume, because in all the other ones there has been female assassins, it's just usually you don't play as them. It's up to them. They can make an all-male cast if they like. It's their game. I mean, you're perfectly entitled not to play it if you are opposed to the fact you can only play as men. But how come men don't complain when there's a game where you can only play as women? I don't get it. Obviously, equal rights from a gender point of view is a very contentious issue. I would just like to remind anybody who is angry about these things that there are still places in the world where it is much, much worse, and we should be concentrating on making it better in those places first, in my opinion, rather than worrying about a computer game having a playable female character. But that's just me. So, but yes, and then they start going on about how dare the hostage in Rainbow Six Siege be a woman. Fuck off. I mean, that is just, you're just being stupid now, and of course there'll be male hostages as well. It was like a family home, so it was the daughter of the family. Possibly the terrorists were holding her hostage to extort the parents. I mean, you're just looking for reasons to cause a fuss for no reason, Patricia Hernandez, you terrible person. That's right, I named the author I despise most at Kotaku, because I absolutely hate every single thing she puts to page. But anyway, to go back to good things. Assassin's Creed Unity, very interested in it, and as I was kind of alluding to there, the new Rainbow Six game, Rainbow Six Siege, where you can break anything, well not anything, you know what I mean. You can break walls and floors to open up points of entry, and it's 5-on-5 criminals versus, well, it's terrorists in that game. I was getting confused with Battlefield Hardline. Terrorists and the Rainbow Six guys, and I don't want to say it looks good because I think that was a very touched up in-game demo. A la Watch Dogs, I don't think the full game will look as good as that demo they were playing did. But from a gameplay perspective, the way it played, the scenario, the way it was a very innovative way to do teams of 5-on-5, that appealed to me a lot. It looked really good. So that also kind of made Ubisoft the winner for me from E3. They were the conference that had the most stuff I was interested in, because they also had The Division, Tom Clancy, well the final game to get Tom Clancy's name on it, I assume, given now that he's passed away. It's hard to say why I'm interested in The Division, because it really does just seem like a standard third-person cover-based shooter, but there's just something about it. It seems like it's... how to describe it? It's got a level of maturity I wasn't expecting. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. I just feel it in my bones that it's a bit different to everything else. So I'm looking forward to that one. And those are 3 games from Ubisoft. So they won from a perspective of they have the most games I'm interested in. They also had the worst presenter for a 3rd year in a row, although she's still a lot better than who they had before. He was called Mr. Caffeine, I remember despising him. I mean, she's fine, she's a good presenter, she's a good speaker, she's just not funny, and she's supposed to be funny, I think. But yeah, so Ubisoft was definitely the best conference. They had the most games I was interested in. As far as Xbone exclusive games go, Sunset Overdrive I don't actually like the look of. Like when they did the trailer, they were making fun of the stereotypical military-based shooter, and then like the guy from Sunset Overdrive comes in and he's all colourful and he can wall run and crap like that. I was thinking, yeah, that Sunset Overdrive guy is a dick. I don't want to play as him. I'd rather play as the wimpy soldier. At least he's not a dick. But it's colourful, I'll give it that, and it certainly I would compare it to a shooter crossed with Tony Hawk's, and that's a very interesting new way to play. So it's got my interest from a gameplay perspective, but the smug prat you were playing as, or you were seen to be playing as in that demo, didn't like him at all. So if he's the main character, ugh, he makes me cringe or just shudder with mild hatred and disappointment. What else was there? Well, of course there was Destiny showed off. I was trying to get into the PS4 Destiny 3-day demo thing. Let me just check my emails again here, because I've got until the end of today that they're sending out waves of emails. Nope, still don't have any. I was watching someone stream the Destiny Alpha, it's not a beta, and it's Halo with Borderlands mixed together, which is okay. I guess I was just expecting a bit more from the proper Bungie team, even though I don't exactly like them. I'm not as enamoured with Bungie as some people are, put it that way. But yeah, it looks okay. The co-op aspect will probably be the only thing that redeems it from being otherwise just as boring as Borderlands would be by yourself as well. So yeah, underwhelmed at that. I did get into the PS4 beta of Battlefield Hardline. I was considering doing a let's look at it of it, but I don't feel like I'm in the right place to do it, because I'm going to Battlefield Hardline from Battlefield 2. I didn't play 3, I didn't play 4, I didn't play Bad Company 1 or 2. So my jump between Battlefield games are so vast that everything seems new and fantastic to me. Whereas I know if someone's jumping from 4 to this, they'll probably be saying, well, it's basically the same thing. And that's my guess. I assume it's very, very similar. But to me, I would describe Hardline as a cross between... well, actually no, it's exactly like Payday 2 if the cops were also players. So to me that makes the whole scenario more exciting. Plus there's obviously that stage destruction stuff that they started adding in Battlefield 3, which is fun when it happens, although it does seem to happen fairly rarely. I'm still not sure whether you instigate it or not, But there's going to be, well, by the time you hear this you'll already have seen, I did record some matches just for fun. I know these kind of games are definitely niche from a fan perspective, I guess. People who like them, people who hate them, like, very vocally hate them. I'm playing it for fun. I feel like if I tried to get too into it, I'd get too angry at it and give in. So I'm just trying to treat it as a little aside. It's not going to be a mainstay, that's for sure, plus the beta's not running for very long. Would I buy Hardline based on what I've played of the beta so far? No, probably not. I would consider it for review, but I don't think I'd go out and buy it. Unless I knew I would have at least a few people who would play it with me. Because I think those games are, again, well, I suppose it goes without saying, any game is better with friends, basically, outside of, say, really hardcore RPG experiences. On that note, the footage, the actual, not the CG stuff, the in-game footage of the new Dragon Age game, meh, didn't really do anything for me. And then there was a new X-Bone game with, like, Monster Hunter vibes, wasn't there? I can't remember what it's called, Scale something? The guy could, like, turn into a dragon, but he was an absolute prick, so I didn't care. Yeah, that didn't do anything for me either, but I got very strong Monster Hunter vibes from the atmosphere. You seem to have a pet dragon, but then when you hit a dragon, you absorb its power and get weird armor and special powers. That was all CG as well though, so it's hard to judge. Did anything else stand out? What was that Sony's? Oh well, Sony, they've got a new Uncharted 4, which sounds like it might be the final Uncharted game, which is fair enough. I like the Uncharted games, I like 2 the best. I've never played 1, but so basically out of Uncharted 2 and 3, I think 2 has a much better story, but 3 is prettier. So there you go. 4 looks very pretty. Apparently it looked CG what they showed, but they said afterwards apparently that was all in-engine on a single PS4 at 1080p. So there you go. What was the other exclusive they had? Oh well, The Last of Us is coming to the PS4. If you didn't have a PS3, definitely buy The Last of Us on the PS4. It was the best thing I played last year. It is a fantastic, very emotional, very adult game. I felt it treated me with respect, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's also got a lead voiced by Troy Baker, but it doesn't sound quite like him. And on that subject, I'm mildly interested in Far Cry 4 because Troy Baker is doing the voice of the villain in that. And yes, I am very well aware that I have a bit of a man crush on Troy Baker's voice. I would very much like to get his autograph, because I think he's incredibly talented. He's definitely better than Nolan North, and I don't mind Nolan North. My favourite Troy Baker role, by the way, would probably be Valve Torres in Dragon Ball. In Disgaea 4, he was the lead in that, and he just had a lot of fun with it. He plays a vampire who eats sardines instead of drinking blood. So yeah, he got to act very weird. And he was good as the Joker. He was basically the only redeeming thing in Arkham Origins. He paid good tribute to Mark Hamill's Joker, while also putting his own little twist on it. And he was great in Bioshock Infinite as well. I've never heard him in a bad role. I mean, he's one of the optional voices in Saints Row 3 onwards. I don't think he was in 2. So yeah, he just does good work. So any game that has him in it is of interest to me. The problem with the Far Cry games, and this is the reason why I'll never finish Far Cry 3, is if they're on PC, the Uplay integration is just so bloody awful that it puts me off playing. I gave up on Far Cry 3. I just got so sick of the bloody Uplay interface. Thankfully, if you play, this applies to Origin as well, if you play those kind of games on console, they can't be as intrusive as they are on PC. So if I do decide to go and actually buy Far Cry 4, it'll probably be for PS4, just to avoid Uplay. I hate it that much. Uplay is a bare bones thing that acts as a veneer to hide the real reason Ubisoft made it. It's not as a storefront, it's not as a ease of getting patches to you, it's none of that bullshit. It's purely for DRM. Everything else they tack on is half-arsed, just so they can say that it does those things to hide the fact they want DRM. And the funniest thing is, it does nothing. DRM does nothing. It does not stop pirating of software. It still happens. And pirates often get to play the games much earlier and on launch day, because the bloody DRM servers go down on launch days for all their big games. It's as if they don't realise it's going to happen. It's not like it's happened every other time. Oh wait, it has. So that's what infuriates me about Uplay. Uplay is so bad, it made me find Origin tolerable. That is how bad Uplay is. So as much as I'm saying that Ubisoft won E3 this year for me, Uplay, thankfully, which they also didn't mention. That's another thing to point out actually. EA didn't mention Origin once. Ubisoft didn't mention Uplay once. What does that tell you about where things are going? It's interesting. So I think that's it for games that stood out to me. was there any games I was disappointed in that I was looking forward to? Nothing is coming to mind, really. So it's basically, yes, Assassin's Creed Unity, The Division, Far Cry 4, maybe, Uncharted 4, I'm forgetting one other one that I've talked about already, but I talked about it already, so you heard it, right? So I think that's about it. It was a very lackluster E3, but at the same time there wasn't many disappointments. There was a lot of early stuff shown off for the first time, like really conceptual stage stuff, which was a bit interesting. It made it feel like, oh crap, we don't have enough to even fill a 2-hour show or an hour, however long it goes on. Quick, get some concept art together and we'll just talk about this for however long. And there was a little bit of an indie showing. I think Sony had the most indie devs present, I think. Although Microsoft did have more, and they talked a little bit about the new ways they're changing the system so they don't screw over any indie dev that decides to go on Expo. Although they do still have the clause that a game must be exclusive to, an indie game must be exclusive to the Xbox One, or it has to be a concurrent release on every platform at once. So they won't let, excuse the dog barking, they won't let any indie game on their console that's been exclusive to the PS4, for example. I was hoping for a Binding of Isaac Rebirth trailer on the subject of indie games, but I haven't seen any yet, which is a bit weird. But that's about it. There was hintings of a new Star Wars Battlefront game. It was a CG trailer, don't care. And yes, I'm aware there was a Nintendo thing afterwards, but it wasn't part of E3, so I don't care. It had nothing of interest to me whatsoever. So that's going to cover it for a very brief overview of the things that I cared about in E3 this year. As I was saying, you can leave topics or questions in the comments below and I will answer them next week. So why don't you guys talk about what interests you at E3? Because I've probably forgotten stuff. That's the downside to me doing this off the cuff rather than writing notes. There's probably games I was interested in that I've forgotten about. So one way or another, what did you like that you saw out of E3? Share in the comments. Or look out on Twitter at GamerEND and I'll point out when I'm going to record another one of these. So with that, I think I'm going to go. I'm not sure what we'll be discussing next time. Maybe still the runoff of E3, because there's still trailers and whatnot to come from the floor show. The actual event, which is running until... Well, actually it ends on the day I'm recording this. But what I mean is there's a bunch of extra stuff that comes out afterwards because the main conferences start and then the smaller developers and whatnot get to have their moment in the sun. So yeah, I'm going to stop now. I've got some more recording to do and I better go see what the dog was barking at, I suppose. Thank you very much for listening and I shall see you next week. Ta-ta for now.